Patalametasya hi padamulam Patanti pashni prapadde rasatalam Mahatalam vishpasya jotagupo Talatalam vai purushasya jange. Word for word. Patalam, the planets at the bottom of the universe. Etasya, of his. He, exactly. Padamulam, soles of the feet. Patanti, they study it. Pashni, the heels. Prapade, the toes. Rasatalam, the planets named Rasatala. Mahatalam, the planets named Mahatala. Vishvasija, of the creator of the universe. Ata, thus. Gulpo, the ankles. Talatalam, the planets named Talatala. Vai, as they are. Purusasya, of the gigantic person. Jange, the shanks. Translation. Persons who have realized it have studied that the planets known as Patala constitute the bottoms of the feet of the universal Lord, and the heels and the toes are the Rasatala planets. The ankles are the Mahatala planets, and his shanks constitute the Talatala planets. Translation, please repeat. Persons who have realized it have studied that the planets known as Patala constitute the bottoms of the feet of the universal Lord, and the heels and the toes are the Rasatala planets. The ankles are the Mahatala planets, and his shanks constitute the Talatala planets. Purport. Outside the bodily existence of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the manifested cosmic existence is no reality. Everything and anything of the manifested world rests on him, as confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita 9.4. But that does not imply that everything and anything in the vision of a materialist is the Supreme Personality. The conception of the universal form of the Lord gives a chance to the materialist to think of the Supreme Lord, but the materialist must know for certain that his visualization of the world in a spirit of lording over it is not God realization. The materialistic view of exploitation of the material resources is occasioned by the illusion of the external energy of the Lord, and as such, if anyone wants to realize the supreme truth by conceiving of the universal form of the Lord, he must cultivate the service attitude. Unless the service attitude is revived, the conception of Virat realization will have very little effect on the seer. The transcendental Lord, in any conception of his form, is never a part of the material creation. He keeps his identity as the Supreme Spirit in all circumstances, is never affected by the three material qualities, where everything material is contaminated. The Lord always exists by his internal energy. The universe is divided into 14 planetary systems. 7 planetary systems called Bhu, Bhuva, Sva, Maha, Janas, Tapas, and Satya are upward planetary systems, one above the other. There are also 7 planetary systems downward, known as Atala, Vitala, Sutala, Talatala, Mahatala, Rasatala, and Patala, gradually one below the other. In this verse, the description begins from the bottom because it is in the line of devotion that the Lord's bodily description should begin from his feet. Sukadeva Goswami is a recognized devotee of the Lord, and he is exactly correct in the description. So, Canto 2, Chapter 1, Text 26, Patalam etasya hipadamulam patanti pashni prapate rasatalam mahatalam vishva shrijota gupo Talatalam by Purushasya Jange. Persons who have realized it have studied that the planets known as Patala constitute the bottoms of the feet of the Universal Lord, and the heels and the toes are the Rasatala planets, the ankles are the Mahatala planets, and the shanks constitute the Talatala planets. So, here the theme is continued by Sukadeva Goswami of the first step. Of course, this chapter is entitled The First Step in God Realization, coming from an impersonal understanding of the Absolute Truth. We come to the form, the personality, of course first the form, and as has been explained in the previous verses, there's the Virat Rupa, the universal form, the elements and so on. Now the visualization is given that you can also visualize the planetary systems. In the Vedic literature, the universe is divided into different planetary systems, and they are named here Bhu, Bhuva, Spa, starting from Earth, the Earth planetary system, and Bhuva, intermediary planets. This is a nice description of all this also in the 5th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, where the planetary systems are described, and the residents, at least some of the residents of the planetary systems, is also described. And so we have the Earth planetary system, and there are human beings and all the species of life on the Earth planetary system. And then on Bhuva, in between the Earth and the Svarga, the heavenly planets, there's another planetary systems. There it is said the Charanas live there, Vidyadharas, the Siddhas, different personality, mystics, some mystics who have perfected the mystic cities. They live on certain planetary systems. They're all different. The Bhutas, there's a planet of the Bhutas, also a planet of the ghosts, which is considered, that I've read before, it's not so far above the earth. And there's a Bhutanath, or Bhutaraj rather, Bhutanath, that's the name of Lord Shiva and also the name of the Lord. But Bhutaraj there's a leader of the Bhutas. And that planet, as I've read before, is just about 800 miles up, but it's very subtle, you can't see with the ordinary eye. And the Bhutas have, although they don't have gross physical bodies, they have subtle bodies, and they can move around, not only in this world, but they can go in between the worlds. And they come and they go around and they act on people in different ways. These are the Bhutas, so they're some of the residents, and a little bit higher up and so on and so forth. As I said, the Charanas, Vidyadharas, so on, Siddhas. And then we come to the Svarga Loka, where all the demigods, the heavenly demigods are existing. We have Indra, and we have Vayu, and we have Surya, and so on, so many Agni, so many different demigods, the whole planetary system there. Just like when we look up at night, at night time, it's a dark night especially, you see a clear night, you see all the stars, all the different shining in the heavens. So Svarga Loka, and then we have the Mahaloka, Janaloka, Tapa Loka, Mahajana Tapa, great personalities, Bhrigu Muni, and of course in the Tapa Loka there's the Kumaras and so on, perfected, more perfected beings. And then of course we have Brahma Loka and all the residents in that planetary system. So these are considered the upper planetary systems. And then we have Earth is considered the middle. And here also mentioned is the lower planetary systems. Not so, I remember I used to know these off by heart because they're pretty easy to remember. Attala, Vitala, Sutala, Talatala, Mahatala, Rasatala and Patala. The 7 lower planetary systems. And there, as I said, there's a good description if you want to read in the 5th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam. And they're called the subterranean heavenly planets. All different types of personalities live there. We know that in Sutala that Bali Maharaj lives there, and Atala, the certain personalities live there, certain lifestyle there, and Vitala and Atala, Vitala, Sutala, what's next? Mahatala, Talatala. And then you get down to down to the lower levels of the subterranean planetary systems, and there are descriptions of Nagas and divine, kind of not divine, but very extraordinary Nagas who can change their shape. And Nagas mean snake-like personalities, but they're very evolved and they have sometimes they have combined human and snake forms. And they are living. Vasuki lives down, I think, in the Patala area, and so a whole description is there in the Srimad Bhagavatam. And actually, is that the subterranean? They're actually considered more opulent than the heavens. They're called the subterranean heaven because they're now, according to the description, they're about. They start at Atala starts at around 500,000 miles below the earth. 500,000 miles below the earth. Atala, we go down, so many yojanas, and the next level, the next level, the next level. And no sunlight goes, no sunlight penetrates there. Subterranean. No sunlight goes there. But they're self-effulgent. And they said they're gems on the hoods of the Nagas and also giving off their own light and there are reflective surfaces and all sorts of, so it's like daylight. But there's no sun directly. But the lifespan, they don't suffer in any way. There's no disease. There's not even old age. It is said their span ends when the Sudarshan Chakra comes, and they don't know even day and night. It's just all light. There's no day and night there. Just all light. So the description is that they're very opulent, even more opulent than the higher planetary systems, but of course they're completely godless. They're totally materialistic, whereas in the upper planetary systems they're God conscious, and the lower planetary systems are not. So this description is given. Prabhupada talks about it here, the upper planetary systems, the lower planetary systems, and so if one is visualizing. Trying to visualize someone beyond the world, the spiritual personality, the supreme personality of God in his topmost position of, when you get to the Vaikuntha, the spiritual realm, there are all sorts of planetary systems there too. Now that's because ultimately this whole universe and all the universes are reflections of the spiritual reality. So just as there are planetary systems and living entities and beings occupying those planetary systems, different grades of the planetary systems, different type of functions and activities of the beings on those planetary systems, so too in the spiritual world there's also a planetary system, but they're not made of matter. There's no material elements there. Here we have the earth and the water and the fire. There it's not there. They are spiritual. Spiritual planetary systems, spiritual beings with no material bodies. Maharaj was talking about the senses any one of the senses can perceive the activity of the other sense and interchange, and the bodies are spiritual. We don't know about that now because we just accept ourselves to be our external body. But within we are the soul. That soul in its liberated state can go to the Vaikuntha, to the spiritual realm, the upper planetary system, to the topmost is Krishna Loka. So just as we have the planetary systems here, they are there but totally liberated position. So this is now here. The visualization is there. Now, going on from this point, that if you want to visualize a form of someone beyond, you can start with the energy and even the planetary systems. Okay, the planetary systems go from the lower, so there, the patala is the feet and so on, and the ankles and the shanks and then the waist and then the chest. So you can visualize a form of the universe, and that is the energy. But you have to connect it to the Supreme Personality of God. There's a strong point that Prabhupada talks about here in his purport. First of all, he says that actually the energy has no existence without the energetic. This is a very important point. Everything and anything manifested will rest on him. Outside of the bodily existence of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, there's no reality really to this energy, the material energy. There's no reality. Just like a reflection. Now, a reflection cannot exist by itself. It has to have something it's reflecting, just like your shadow. Your shadow wouldn't exist if you weren't there. You know, the shadows don't go around by themselves. They're shadows of someone. So we can understand like that. So this world is considered like a shadow, a reflection. But it has to be a reflection of something and someone. Of course, in the modern scientific idea is that there's no supreme personality of Godhead, there's spiritual, or the supreme is this universe. And this universe exists in itself, of itself. They think like that. Basically, generally speaking. So there's no connection. There's nothing else. It is the universe, and it started. There were all different theories how it started. There was an explosion, or there was a steady state of expansion, or so many different ideas of how it came about. There was like that. So they explain it in that way. But of course, according to the Vedic understanding, no, this is actually there's no meaning, there's no reality to it. And aham vivasam eva agre. This was nanya yat sadasaparam in the Srimad Bhagavatam further on in this canto. There's the Chatushloki, and where Lord Narayan is speaking to Brahma. And he said, Brahma, it is I, the personality of God who was existing before the creation, when there was nothing but myself. Nor was there the material nature, the cause of the creation. That which you see now is also I, the personality of God, and after annihilation that which remains will also be I. So this world is manifest, then it is wound up, as Maharaj was describing yesterday. From the Mahavishnu, all the planetary systems come, and exhaling, and then inhaling, they all come. So it is manifest for some time. Of course, that time, according to our calculation, is a long time. Millions and trillions of years. But still, it is manifested and is wound up. Manifested and wound up. And then in the meantime, it's kept within the abdomen, it comes out again. So really it is as a non-reality if it hasn't, it's connected to the Supreme Person through, of course, the Mahavishnu, ultimately, who's an expansion of the Sankarshan, and obviously ultimately of the Supreme Personality of God, Krishna. So this is a strong point that Srila Prabhupada makes here. We shouldn't think, all right, well, we're going to visualize the material energy, but if we do it wrongly, therefore it's very important to follow. If we're going to try to understand the form, a spiritual form, we can first of all do it through the material world. But if we wrongly come to the conclusion that actually the material world is everything, all in all, there's no connection to anything else, then that's very unfortunate. You won't reach the perfection of understanding of spirituality. You remain. That's one mistake that one has to be very careful of. Everything and anything of the manifest will rest in him. But nevertheless, even though it comes from, he is beyond it also. Just like the spider's web. The spider creates the web. And quite often we don't see the spider. But we know the spider's there somewhere. Quite often we walk along, and if there's a big huge spider's web, we walk right into it, which I did this morning, and we walk right into it, and we get caught up. It's all sticky all over us, and then up there's the big spider up there, you break it, and he comes out and creates it again. But the web's not in; it doesn't exist separately from the spider. Webs don't spring up. They don't just spring up. There's a spider that makes the web. So these are all reflections, webs, spiders, web. So too, the material existence. This is the position of the spiritual, especially the personalist, those who accept the absolute truth as a person. Ultimately, the Supreme Personality of God, Sri Krishna. It comes from him, and he winds it up again. And here, he said, before you, Brahma, and before this material energy, there was neither you nor the material, it was just I. just die. And then from me all this came. So this is the understanding, nice description. And now on top of that, now if one accepts that and then follows the direction for a beginner, as Sukadev Goswami is explaining here, then that's very good. He makes progress. But at the same time, Prabhupada warns that you don't allow yourself to come to the wrong conclusion. Here, we have to. If anyone wants to realize, what does he say? But the materialist must know for certain that his visualization of the world in a spirit of lording it over is not God realization. The exploitation mentality. Now let's say, for example, you have a very wealthy friend, and this friend owns a huge mansion, and he lets you go there. So you go in there and you just trash the place. That's not very good, is it? You're not going to get an invite back. You go in there, you invite all your friends, and you just, without regard to the owner of this mansion, you just do whatever you like, and whatever you please, and you just you try to whatever you wouldn't try to wreck it or whatever you want to do. But that's not the right attitude. So attitude is very important here, very, very important. Right attitude. So this is the energy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. One has to, first of all, if a friend is inviting to your house, generally they'll say, now, I'm letting you stay there, but don't trash it. Don't go in there, make a mess, and if you clean up, do this, do that, so many rules. So actually, the Vedas, the Shastras, these are the rules and regulations for us living here in the material world. See? These are the rules and regulations here. How to live in the world. We have to know how to live in the world. We can't just live in the world, and especially with this lording it over, exploiting. This comes from ignorance, this comes from greed. When we get very, very greedy, we just see a thing and we just think, I've got to have it. It's mine. They'll fight to the death over it. It's like Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, where he tells the story of the little frog. The little frog was down by the river, and then the little frog saw the rupee coin. So the frog saw the coin. Oh, he jumped on the rupee coin. This is mine. Wasn't his before, but anyway, now it's his, right? So he's on there, and then the other frogs came and he fought them off and everything like that. So then this big elephant comes down with the hood on top, coming down to bathe in the river. So then the elephant, big, huge elephant, comes down, getting closer and closer, and the frogs croak, don't come any closer, don't come any closer. And he was thinking that the elephant's coming to steal this rupee coin. Then he's shouting out, the big elephant didn't even hear him, just going down, and then walking along, and squish. And that was the end of the poor little frog. So not only did he lose his rupee coin, he lost his whole life out of it. Just because of that mentality, you see? So out of our greed, we want to exploit. We want to exploit. We have to understand what the purpose of the world is and how we should live in it. How we should live in it. Everyone has got their place. Don't encroach upon others. You only take those things that are necessary for you. Don't be greedy. Don't be exploited. So the materialist view of exploitation, material resources, is occasioned by the illusion of the external energy. Now, if someone wants to realize the Supreme Personality of God, if you maintain this mentality, then, as Prabhupada says here, this type of will have very little effect. Very little effect, because the attitude is wrong. It's very, very important. We can have everything, just like someone can want to go to university. They want to study to be a doctor or something like that. So somehow or other they get into one of the best university institutions. The lecturers are great. The resources are great. The material, everything's great. But if They've got a really bad attitude. No matter how good the university is, no how good the courses are, how good the lecturers are, you're going to fail. Because you yourself haven't come in a proper mood and attitude. And you have to be submissive. You have to be respectful. You have to learn. You have to ask questions. But you can't have an attitude. You're not going to get very far. By attitude I mean, a bit puffed up, arrogant kind of attitude when you're a beginner going in there, as if you know everything already. You're studying to be a lawyer, or a doctor, an architect. What do you know? But if you're going to be challenging and aggressive and arrogant, you're not going to. There's not going to be that proper transmission of knowledge and so on. And so you're not really ready yet. Krishna says, I reserve the right to reveal myself. Idam-tena tapaskana bhakti. To those who are not in a humble mood, they're not ready. So, Ata Sri Krishna Namadi Nababan Garamin Sevan Mukhi Savai Eva Sporata. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, there's one story about Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, where one time the Vice Chancellor of Benares University came to Mayapur area and wanted to meet with Srila Bhaktisiddhanta. And he came before him, and he was very humble, very educated and scholarly person. And he said, I want to ask you some questions about Vedanta. And Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, he replied that, well, you go ask the pujaris, they will be able to answer those questions. No, they won't be able to answer. These are very complicated questions about Vedanta. No, you ask them. They'll be able to. So he was a very humble man. So he went down, and so he approached some of the pujaris. At the time they were cleaning the paraphernalia, the deity paraphernalia. And so they were cleaning, and so they said, if you want, yes, we will answer you, but just if you could just help us, we have to polish this brassware and this and that, so if you could help. So here's the vice chancellor. So he started cleaning, and then he was thinking. Then when he finished, they were still busy, but then he went back to see Srila Bhaktisiddhanta. So Srila Bhaktisiddhanta said, so were your questions answered? One thing, when I was cleaning, I was thinking about all those questions, and somehow or other the answers came into my own mind. And that actually, it was at that time that Srila Bhaktisiddhanta quoted this verse. He said, my Guru Maharaj, he often quoted this verse, Ata Sri Krishna Namani Daba Vangrayendra Sevan Mukhi Jivaro Spayam Eva Spurat. He said, with the blunt material senses, you cannot understand the spiritual personality of Godhead. But when the senses are purified through rendering Sevan Mukhi Jiva, through rendering service. Now this service attitude is mentioned here by Prabhupada and emphasized. Indeed, I remember when we were new devotees, we used to use this a lot, when we were talking about other devotees, someone would say, oh, such and such, he's such a nice devotee, he's such a nice devotee. Yes, they've got a very good service attitude. We used to say that. Do you remember that, Manamai? We used to say that. Anyway, over here we used to say that. So, very good service attitude. They've got very service attitude because it's intrinsic in our own being is serving others. That shows love. That shows affection, as I mentioned last week. If you have feelings for someone, you have affection, you have love for someone, you want to do things for them. You want to do things for them. You want to serve them, do things or serve them. So if you have if you want to develop affection and a loving mood to the Supreme Personality of God, or even understanding even the beginning levels of the form of the Lord, you have to develop this service attitude. You can't be greedy and exploitive, lording it over. Now this lording it over, it's been with us so many eons of lifetimes. Controller. Sometimes we say like that, oh, she's a control freak, or he's a control freak. We say like that. They're control freaks. They've got to control. That's been with it. Sometimes it's very consciously we do it. Sometimes we don't even know we're doing it. Because it's been with us from so many lives. you're just going about and someone says, you're a control freak. Really? Am I? I don't even know. Well, you are. Because then it sometimes gets into, well, you're the one that's a control freak. What about you? But the thing is, all of us are. All of us are to more or less a degree. All of us are. And the sooner we realize that, the better. All of us have got this mood of controlling, lording it over, exploiting, using it, just seeing everything. There's one, I was reading in the Shastra that a very greedy person will just look at something and just see it. How can I make money off this? Just see it as theirs. Even if it's not theirs, it's theirs. And they just want to make money. A lusty person will see everything in regard to sex life. Greedy person will see everything like that. There's a whole, I remember there was reading all these different, how the attitudes of people. So on the materialistic level, it's like that. So all of us have got it. All of us have got it. We have got, materialistic pride, arrogance, condescending, greed, ignorant, and to more or less a degree. So to the more you have it, the harder it is for you to advance on the spiritual path, even on the beginning levels. Even here, mentioned on the beginning levels. So of course, in the process of following all these things, one will become humble. But even in the beginning, it is recommended that one should be conscious of the fact that I have to be humble. I have to cultivate, not in lording it over, but a serving mentality. How can I serve you? A true leader will be like that. A leader will be a servant leader, and the topmost leader, of course, is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The Krishna likes to serve his devotees. And by serving, we develop love, we develop affection, and so on and so on. So this is very, very important. Unless the service attitude is revived, this is important. Now, it is with us. This mood is deep down in the soul. We have to revive it. Now it's covered over by all our many lifetimes of conditioning. We've become angry, we've become proud, we've become arrogant, greedy, we've become all these things. But deep down, we do have love and affection and a serving mood. We like to help people. We like to serve them. What can I do for you? When you go into, really good department stores, the staff are trained to serve you. And because they come over, how can I help you? They treat you nicely, they're very gentle with you. You feel like you want to go back. But if you go into a store and they don't even pay any attention to you, they're talking to someone else, or they come over and give you attitude. Wait a minute, I'm the customer. Can you help me find it? Oh, yeah, you find it yourself. You're not going to feel like you're going to want to go back into that store, right? So it's very, very important, whether it's a store or a restaurant, and quite often I remember being many times in meetings where, it's been brought up, people have complained, they've gone into our restaurants and those serving haven't been very, nice to them, they haven't been very, so that the experience was very bad. The experience was very bad. So even on the material level, it's best to have that mentality. Arrogant, puffed up, No one likes to hang around these people, unless you're one of them yourself. Because then you won't even get on with your own self. And then you've got a whole bunch of people all thinking the same way. Oh, that's when wars happen. That's when wars happen. So unfortunately, Kali Yuga, there's a great abundance of the greed principle is so strong now. greed principle. Everything's about making profit, and you pay 100 times the price. Even in Vrindavan, they say they have in Loy Bazaar. If you go to Loy Bazaar, they have one price for the locals who live there. They have another price for the foreigners, but they've lived there a long time. And then they have another price, whoa, right up there, for those who are foreigners just coming new. Well, if you ask how much is it, they kind of know. They know whether you're a whoa! Prabhupada used to comment about it. Your devotees would come back in the early days. He said, "Oh, you paid 10 times the price." I got a good deal, Prabhupada. They got the good deal. So it's like that, even there. But like the greed principle all over the world, and they're very selfish. Instead of being expanding our consciousness, expanding, going up to the God consciousness, we become more and more myopic. We just think about ourselves. As you go down low in the species, they just think about themselves more and more and more. In the mode of ignorance, they don't even think about others so much. They just think about themselves, and after, if they go, they just do things against their own bodies and so on and so forth. That's really in the mode of ignorance. So anyway, here the description is the first step, but the service attitude, humble position. Otherwise, none of these things will be helpful. So I'll just read this verse again. I've gone a little over time. Persons who have realized it have studied that the planets known as Patala constitute the bottoms of the feet of the universal Lord, and the heels and the toes of the Rasatala planets, the ankles of the Mahatala planets, and his shanks constitute the Talatala planets. Any questions? Comments?
Maharaj, it seems we call this the very early beginning stage of God realization. It appears to be able to meditate on this sort of universal form, you need to have a lot of knowledge. Vedic knowledge and I guess quite a bit of faith as well. So it's for an early beginning stage, introductory stage of God realization, it seems like.
Yes, and I was when I was reading this first, I thought that's true. How would anyone know? Especially in the Western world, they have their own views of what the universe is. How would they know about Patala and Rasatala, Mahatala, and all the different planets and the Svar? How do they know? Well, yes, to meditate in this way, as recommended by Sukadeva Goswami, you have to have a little bit of preliminary knowledge, or you have to be hearing from someone who can has understood all these things and explaining to you that this is going. We hear from the Srimad Bhagavatam. Prabhupada actually said that to advancement on the spiritual path in the one purport in the 4th chapter of the 4 or 34, that Tadvidi Pranipati, he says that spiritual advancement is difficult. But one needs a lot of knowledge from books like Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam, and therefore Prabhupada, one of these books, distributed profusely all over the world. So at least a little preliminary knowledge is there. Of course, even one has the books, they may not understand so much. So therefore, the books are there and the classes are given. And then when someone comes to understand a little bit, then if they can begin in this way, they can follow this as given. Now, of course, Sukadeva Goswami is speaking to his Maharajas, as have been explained. There are all different types of persons there on the banks of the Jamuna there. So therefore, he's presenting, the beginning, and then he'll go on as we read through. Any final question? Yes.
Canto is described how the birth of Brahma and how Brahma sees the kingdom of God after his meditation, right? So I was wondering, when is the Brahma Samhita recited? Because in this canto, Brahma talks about God as Narayana.
Well, it's mentioned in the Brahma Samhita that after he was enlightened by the Supreme Personality with the Gayatri Mantra, which came through the flute, he had a vision of the spiritual realm. And after he had the vision of the spiritual realm, he composed the Brahma Samhita.
So in this moment, when he saw Narayana, then he saw Krishna? Or?
In this moment?
In this moment, when in this canto is described when he sees Vaikuntha and Narayana sitting in his throne.
Well, no. In the moment when he was enlightened with that, it's mentioned there in the Brahma Samhita, when he was enlightened with that Gayatri Mantra. At that time, it is mentioned in the Bhagavatam, he had the vision. And actually, I think in Chatusloki Maharaj, I think at that. But anyway, in the Brahma Samhita, it's mentioned like that. Anything else to add to that?
Actually, what Brahma saw when he sees Vaikuntha, whatever, actually didn't see Vaikuntha, he saw Krishna. And he realized everything to Krishna. So that more or less correlates with Brahma Samhita. But the idea is that sometimes Brahma may get a vision of Krishna, other times he may have a vision of Vishnu also, depending on the qualification of the particular Brahma.
Yeah, they're different Brahmas, right? Yeah.
Different lifetimes of Brahma, then maybe you may have different realizations, sometimes of Krishna, sometimes of Vishnu.
Right.
So would that mean that the Brahma Samhita was not signed by the same Brahma? Does that mean that the Brahma Samhita was not signed by the same Brahma that we're reading here in this canto? Because he mentions the kingdom of God, he doesn't mention anything about Krishna or Govinda.
No, as far as I understand, it was this particular. Every Brahma receives that knowledge from the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and this especially this. Now, at the end in the Chatushloki, Prabhupada goes into Brahma desires to worship. He quotes Chintamani Prakara Sadhana Sukalpa Briksha.
We also get the days of Brahma, so every day in the morning when he wakes up,
Yeah.
he doesn't know anything. He has to get the knowledge from the Lord again, so even every day of Brahma for 360 days, for 100 years, he has to keep getting the knowledge and the vision of the Supreme Lord, so sometimes Vishnu, sometimes Vishnu.
So the same events happens every morning of Brahma?
Yeah, every day he has to get some inspiration.
Now here in the purport here in the Chatushloki, it is said that by direct perception of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one is able to know about his abode by Kuntha, as was seen and experienced by Brahmaji. In the Gopal Tapani Upanishad, it is mentioned the Lord appeared before Lord Brahma as a cowboy, that is, as the original personality of God, Lord Sri Krishna, who is later described by Brahmaji in his Brahma Samhita. So he had some sort of vision, and different days of Brahma and different Brahmas, but it appears that this particular Brahma, he saw the personality of Godhead in his original form. This is mentioned here in the purport. Okay, thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Jai, glories to Srila Prabhupada.